Hello. In this example, I will illustrate how you forecast using the exponential smoothing technique using two different alphas, and then compare between the two using the metrics MAD, MAPI, and MSE. So let's start. We have an example here with 6 days of actual sales, and we need to forecast using exponential smoothing, an alpha given at 0.2. So the first value of our forecast, we used a naive approach. And if our actual sales were 1200, it will be also 1200 in the forecasted value. The next cell will be following the formula here on the top of the page. So what I will need to have is to click equal, and then I need the previous day forecasted value and add to that alpha, but then I will anchor alpha in order to make sure that it won't move when I copy it. Multiply, open the brackets, and then I'll take the actual value of the previous day, subtracting the forecasted value of the previous day. So here it is. Obviously we can format that as amounts, and then I can copy that to day 7. So if I will click F2, we can see the exponential smoothing forecast for day 7. What happens if I will copy it to day 8 to forecast that? If I will see the content, I can see that the formula is using an empty actual sales data of day 7. And in this case, similar to what we did with moving average, we will replace the actual data that is missing with a forecasted value. So I'm replacing D12 with E12. Okay, so now I have the forecast exponential smoothing for day 7 and 8. The same approach I will do for alpha 0.9. So that will be equal to the actual value, and that will be equal to the forecasted value plus alpha multiply with the actual subtracted the forecast, and again copy it down and proceeding copying it to 8, but then I need to change D12 with I12. Sorry. The next step is to calculate the metrics MAD by calculating the arrows. One of the things that we need to remember is when we calculate the metrics, when we compare between techniques, we need to find how many rows we have both actual and forecasted data. And especially for exponential smoothing, we're not going to use the first row. So we're going to use the metrics only on these rows, these green lines. We're not using the first row because we use the naive approach there. So let's calculate the arrow using ABS function and calculating the actual value, subtracting the forecasted value. So ABS, you can see how the syntax is, and copy that arrow to the rest of the rows. Let's do that here as well. Equal ABS, taking the actual, subtracting the forecasted, and copying that to the rest. Percentage of error equal the arrow divided by the actual, and changing it to a dollar percentage, sorry. And again, arrow divided by actual, changing it to percentage, and copying it across all of the rows that we are using to this comparison. We can already average and calculate MAD. You can see I'm using the average function, highlighting only the green rows. So that's the syntax, and then when I click enter, I'll get MAD. Can do the same here, equal average highlight the rows. So here is the syntax for the average. And then if you click enter, I will get the average. In this scenario, we can see that using 0.2 as alpha, giving us a lower MAD, which is preferred. Let's proceed with MAPI. We need to average that as well using the same function average, highlighting the green rows. And here as well, highlighting the green rows. Here's the syntax average of the rows and click enter. In this case, we can see that we have a lower percentage in alpha 0.9. And for calculating MSE, we need the arrow squared. We do both equal, clicking on the arrow and squaring it in Excel. So using the hat sign and the number 2, and then you can copy it to the rest. And then averaging, again using the average formula, these lines. Or if we want, we can use, as we did before, equal sum x my 2, providing the actual values, and in this case, comma, and then providing the forecasted values, and divide by 5. This case, we have 5 rows, and we're getting the same value as you can see. In this case, we can see that we have MSE of 195,795 compared to MSE of 94,108. This is preferred in this specific scenario. So that's example to illustrate how you calculate the MAD, MAPI, and MSE for exponential smoothing technique when we use two types of alpha.